What's up, everybody? Welcome to Mongols, brought to you by the Beautiful Game Network. I am Mike. With me is Kev, Josh, and Steve. Boy, a lot going on this week, guys. Nothing. We have the Hounds game that we're obviously going to talk about. We have two more games this week, thanks to the Open Cup. But, first, Steve, how was your weekend?
It was okay weekend. Nothing much happened. Gray.
I'm expecting you to bring the pep, Steve. Come on, man.
Weather.
Let's go.
No, the weather was just all weekend. That really did not help anything. I spent most of my weekend hanging out with some friends, some unexpected visits. Got to catch up with a friend I haven't seen in a while down at the brewery yesterday, which was great. Good beer, Yeah, nice. We can talk about Saturday night. I don't know if anybody wants to.
Well, yeah. I'm trying to put that off as long as we can. Josh, how are you feeling? We missed you last week.
Oh, I am still coughing randomly. It's so weird. I don't feel sick. I just feel like just every once in a while I'm coughing up a storm. And yeah, that's been like over a week now. So not fun. But I'm better enough where I feel like I'm not going to just go into a coughing fit the whole podcast. So
good. Well, if you do, now it's justified. So we'll just brace yourself.
There's your warning. It's fine. I have a mute button. You'll just see me jerking around a lot.
I thought you were going to say if you do, just leave. I don't want to watch you on the podcast. just...
Yeah, we don't need you here, Josh. You can go. That is not true. That is not true. I'm just kidding. Kev, what were you up to?
This weekend, Knoxville had it's called the Rossini Festival in Knoxville. I guess I never looked this up. Actually, I call it no, I figured it out eventually. But I guess Rossini was like an old composer or something, or opera singer. I don't know, of the Renaissance era. And I guess the Knoxville Opera every year for the past 20 years puts on a day-long festival in town, around music, specifically opera-y kind of music. And then because of the time period, we'll invite other time period type things there. So I don't know what they're called, but the Knoxville people in Knoxville who are into the medieval type fighting with
Arbing?
Yeah, but it's they have legit swords and legit armor.
Yeah.
And
okay. All right.
Reenactments essentially.
Okay. Yeah. And so they a couple of them come down and they have different, but blocks of the city are shut down. People are just kind of walking everywhere, eating good food, and there's a ton of stages, so little just local music stuff, and so that was cool. And it's all free, free parking. Knoxville does a good job with that stuff. So that's what I did this weekend.
Awesome. I too did something somewhat culturally. We drove back and saw Woodland Hills' musical. They did Seussical, and it was insane. First of all, I'd never seen Seussical, so I had no idea what to expect. And the backstory, I don't know if we've been doing the show long enough. When my oldest son was in second grade, it was second or third grade, he was cast in Woodland Hills musical. They did Peter Pan, and he played Michael. So literally as a second or third grader, we spent months living at the high school, and he was just around high schoolers all the time. Every night was just 4 or 5 hours with high schoolers hanging out so he could be in Peter Pan. And it was exhausting, but I mean, the shows they put on there are insane. And he was flying on wires and working with a real dog, and it was a whole thing. But he had a blast. We haven't been back in a few years. I mean, really since COVID hit. And so finally my wife was we're putting it on the calendar and we're going, everything else will be canceled. And so, it was cool to go back and see everybody. And like I said, the show was fantastic. Again, they did all sorts of wire work and pyrotechnics and way beyond a high school should ever actually be doing. But it was a lot of fun. So.
I think the context is, Mike, we went to Penn Hills, and right. It's just so what should be done is relative to our experience at Penn Hills.
Well, listen, and I don't want to dog anybody, but my experience out here too, we're ooh, yeah, that's yeah.
Well, Woodland Hills is notorious for having historically good musicals, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And so going back, we got to see the director. It's the same guy who's been doing it for years, who did Peter Pan. We saw some of the students that were in Peter Pan with Ollie, and it was a little weird that we realized that Ollie is the same age now as they were when we did Peter Pan. So, they were all the one director like warned them. They were like, Ollie's going to be here, but you're not going to recognize him. Because literally he went from being like an 8-year-old to like almost a 16-year-old. And so it was just cool to go back and see everybody. And yeah, we had a good time. So
Nice.
if you get a chance, go check it out. There's no good segue.
Get in it. Let's get in it. Let's do
Okay,
it.
so here's I do want to I before we get into it, I have a serious question. And so Hounds lost 2-0 to El Paso. We all made score predictions prior to the game. Only one person out of all of the score predictions picked a Hounds loss. And that was Kevin. Now, listen, I legitimately, I want to pick your brain on this. So we travel to El Paso. This is before the game. We're traveling to El Paso, facing a team that scores as often as we do, but they've given up twice as many goals. So I'm expecting us to outscore them in theory, based on the statistics. In our last game against RGV, on our last show, we talked about how we were generating a ton of scoring chances in the second half. Mm-hmm. Statistically, we're giving up some of the fewest goals in the league. So, Kev, what made you think we were going to lose this game? You weren't wrong, but I'm trying to figure out. Everybody else
Why was
said
he right?
Win or tie. What made you think going into this game that the Hounds were going to lose? Because statistically, everything else was pointing the other direction.
See, no, I was going to say. I think I think
El Paso lost like 3 of their last home games too.
I'm basing this off of what I'll call probabilistic thinking. I mean, so first of all, like you saying I'm the only one who predicted a loss. Now, obviously, there's some bias of like who we're talking to, right? Like if you polled the USL, you wouldn't get 99% of the people saying the Riverhounds weren't going to lose, right? So immediately we have something there. I honestly, so much of this boiled down to like away game. Okay, like that's one where like I don't think we're gonna be wonderful away on a baseball.
They've been really bad at home.
I get it. Okay. I totally get it.
I'm gonna shut up. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Away game, El Paso away game. Not Harrisburg away game, not New York away game. I should be traveling for work right now in DC, and I was like, I don't want to travel to DC right now. Like, I'm not gonna do it. So then that's just Tennessee to DC, like let alone Pittsburgh.
Kevin's gonna miss the next few shows because he's unemployed looking for work. But
no one listens from work. Anyway, so I honestly, it was a bit of that, and it was a bit of like I don't know. In our last game, Dequa scores, Forbes scores. Like I said on the podcast, I was like, Forbes isn't going to score another goal like that all season. And, Dequa, it hits him off, I don't know what, and goes in. I mean, Steve, I know you said you talked to him and like went off his chest or something. And I understand Dequa, had another somewhat reasonable go in, but I don't see us picking teams apart right now. And it all kind of just boiled down to that. I was like, I don't know where we're going to see goals. We're playing away, and probabilistically, like, we're not going to go on a 3-game winning streak here. And, like, we're more likely to lose after we win a game at this point in my head. That could be wrong. But, yeah, I don't know. That's what I went with. I thought. Look, I don't think we're playing amazing right now. At this point
I mean, in basically everything you said was true, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I think if we're looking at takeaways from this game, right? I think seeing that we got scored on twice is a bit of a surprise, and I think that the second goal is a bit of an anomaly. Like, it kind of just happens, and at that point.
I would say the first goal is even not an anomaly. I want to give El Paso a lot of credit. It was a great goal, but it was a great goal. And it was all right. It's one of those.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that this was so much of the Hounds didn't play well. I mean, we had chances. We could have put some things away. I mean, there were times where we made them have to make the save or make the defensive tackle. That first goal was, for me, reminiscent of the goal that Robbie scored with the assist from Arturo, right? I mean, a deep center back making an excellent pass to an attacking player with 1-2 touches and just burying it, right? Like, all around a great goal that you're going to see those types of great goals against even good teams in the USL, right? Like, even some of the best defenses are going to give up those goals from time to time. So am I upset about that goal? Not really, from what it was, right? Like, we got beat by a great goal. And the second one, like, sure, the defense probably should have been a little deeper. Jamali misread the bounce, probably bounced a little higher being on a turf field than a grass field, right? Like, all sorts of ways, right? Like, talked about last week or a few weeks ago, how much older the turf is. I think I was having this conversation with Grubba, and like how it doesn't bounce as much as it used to. So is that factoring into it, that he's playing regularly at Highmark, which might be a similar surface, but the ball's not bouncing as much, right? So he's expecting it to come to him, and then all of a sudden it flies over his head. But we also had our opportunities. I mean, what is it? Diaz is their keeper. I mean, made a couple of excellent saves, and then a couple of saves that were routine saves, but had we done a little better, could have been harder saves. So it's not that we got demolished in front of the net, right? Like, we gave up 2 goals that we shouldn't have given up and didn't convert our chances. This was a pretty even game in my mind.
Josh, what'd you think?
No, I think that's right. It was a pretty even game. It just, we had a lot of little mistakes that added up, as far as just things that I don't want to see. And like, I feel like we keep on seeing them, and it's getting a little bit frustrating, but at the same time, it's still pretty early. So it's not like, the end of the world. Still time to iron them out. Too many passes went way over everyone's heads. Like, every time they crossed it on the field, it was like way, way high. We made a bunch of jokes about the altitude being so different in El Paso. Just like, maybe that's why they can't seem to pass worth a damn. But whatever. I mean, yeah, it was just, it wasn't like this game felt like we were out of it the whole time. We were definitely in it. It was definitely competitive. We had a lot of great opportunities. It just, where it mattered, we couldn't do it, and they could. And that second goal was just, it was so silly of a mistake that it was hard to take like anything from it. It's not like we're all like, well, Jamali, wait, man, he needs to be, right in the bench from here on out. It's like, no, it was a dumb mistake, and it happened.
Yeah.
And I think you had said that in the game day chat on the Discord when somebody was freaking out. I don't remember who, but somebody was like, oh man, he needs to be on the bench now. It's like, no, like, you don't pull the keeper for that, I think is what you said, Josh. And I think that's exactly right. Like, poor play, not a catastrophic season ending type of mistake.
When I would go a step further. I think that, I don't know. Now I'm this is a lot of guesswork and speculation. I wonder if that doesn't happen if we don't give up the first goal the way we give up the first goal. The first goal is a long ball from their center back to their forward, who runs off the shoulder of our defender. Now, granted, in the first goal, we're not keeping a super high line, but Bob likes to keep a relatively high line and put his central defenders in one-on-one situations and have them defend. I think, away from home, we're already down 1-0. Jamali's like, all right, I'll try to do my bit and stop the long ball, like running off the shoulder, off the back. So I'll step up. If any, like, I would want him to, do it again. Like, just like RVG can point to them, like, Forbes isn't going to score another header like that again in the whole league. I'd point to Wait and be like, you're not going to make that mistake again. Keep doing it. This is the right thing to do. And it's one of those where it's like, okay, we got done on 2 goals, and those can happen. Or
This was another game where, as soon as it was over, I was like, ugh, that was awful. And then, like, I look back on it, I'm like, other than those 2 moments, you guys are right. We were in it. Now, I still don't love that. It feels like our primary offense is either just hoof it up to Dequa and let him make some magic, or it's like hope and prayer crosses. And we're back to seeing that. And that was one of the concerns in the offseason was, can this team figure out how to play offense? We know Lily can figure out defense. And statistically, we have to this point. Dequa is on a tear. That's great. If Dequa's not there, do we score at all? I don't know.
I'm with you. I just don't know what how frequent other teams are cutting other USL teams open. So, for example, El Paso beat us on 2 long balls.
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
So I don't know if this exists. And Mike, I'm so with you. I don't know. At the start of every game, when we kick off, I'm like, all right, I don't know how we're scoring, but Forbes is pretty good on the ball. Mertz is pretty good. Dequa has a goal, and we'll see. And I that might be just okay for for this league. I don't know, but that's kind of where my head's at with you. I'm agreeing with you. Yeah.
I think what's frustrating about it is that's all it takes in this league, right? 2 long balls over the top can punish you like it did the Hounds on Saturday night. And so, yeah, did we get carved up? No, but finding a way to either respond or not let the second goal happen more often than not is what makes the difference at this level, rather than just getting beat in every aspect. I mean, I was going through looking at the heat map, the average position, the touch map, and those things on the game day page. And as I'm looking at that, I mean, we were putting on the press. We were definitely the more forward team. We were in the middle or attacking third much more than they were. And so that doesn't tell the whole story, right? It doesn't tell what the quality of that play is, but we weren't letting them get into the attacking third much. And so that was really their only option. And so for me, it's how do the defenders, the midfielders figure out how to not let those types of plays be the undoing in future games against teams that have some quality on the passing and on the finishing.
And so that's why it's so frustrating when we're getting those little things wrong, or
Mhm.
I don't want to say they're little things, the precision with the passing wrong, the picking out the man going forward wrong, because that's all we got. And if we're getting those wrong, we're not going to score a goal. And so we kind of need to be able to successfully pass the ball across the field.
Who'd have thunk it? Yeah.
It turns out that's important, especially when you're not just giving it to someone and dribbling it through everyone in the middle and going to goal. It's you need to be able to do those things. And so while this game wasn't a route, it wasn't a situation where I felt like we were out of it the whole time. It was a situation where I felt like our guys just couldn't actually do the little things to get us that goal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think the other aspect of what I saw was even when Bob was trying to make adjustments, it wasn't working. I mean, he brought in Harmon at 60th, 62nd minute, something like that, and then pulled him out in the 80th minute. Yeah. Right. I mean, that's in and of itself telling, not that I thought he deserved to stay on, he didn't do much, but that even the decision-making of, you could have brought Failing on right away. Would that have made the difference? I don't know. But that obviously signaled to me that's not something you see every day. And that's pretty condemning for Harmon's perspective, or for his play, right? Not anything seemed to go right in this game. Is this one of those games where if the things broke our way, if those passes were a little more precise, if the defense was a little tighter, if the substitution timing was a little bit better, this would have been a 2-0 Hounds win? It easily could have been.
Yeah. And
this is me coping.
Yeah. the last point on it too could be, I mean, we're talking about if it's not through Dequa, I don't know how we score. And I'm still with that original sentiment, but Biasi could be turning around to be look, when we scored against RVG and I set it up for Dequa, we work it down to me on the left side. I score up 1-on-1 against an RBG defender. I beat him, and I get to the byline and I put a cross in. We crash the box. We get a goal. It's great. That's a great way. That's how countless of other teams score goals, right? They get width, they get up high, they get to the byline, they put a hard and low cross back across the box, and someone puts it in. So it's there. We score goals like that, but it also just doesn't feel like it's a pattern of play that we're seeing trying to be repeated. And that's where I think is like kind of
I think the other aspect of that is who else is stepping up at this point as well, right? Like we don't have another forward that scored a goal at this point. Last year, I hazard to guess, that Dequa, Russ, and Alex probably all had goals 7 games in.
yeah.
Right now, we're looking at Burke with 1, Robbie with 1, Kenny with 1, Dequa with 4. That's our goal scoring. And we've got 4 other forwards. We've seen some great chances from Tola.
Lopez had
Tony has had some opportunities. I don't think Langston has been in the position to be taking shots yet.
Yeah.
He's been played much more as a attacking wing back, it seems. But where's Eddie been all season? Like, I haven't seen much out of him in terms of putting pressure on the keeper. So somebody has to step up and put themselves in that position of being the other guy that can be scoring goals, be pushing towards that double-digit goal scoring number. Because if it's just Chico, we're going to be in trouble at the end of the season if he's the only one that's looking like he could be at 10 plus goals.
Yeah. It does make me wonder, though, is this, and I don't watch enough other games across the USL, is this just the standard? Like, is this like, as a USL team, you're successful by playing good defense and your offensive chances come from long balls over the top, or Kev, like you said, I shouldn't say non-repeatable plays, but this is not inner working between the defense and cutting teams apart. That's not what this is. It's sort of counterattacking style, or you get with and just throw bodies in the box and hope for something to happen. If we were to look at every other team in the USL, do you have the case where goals are evenly spread across 4 or 5 people? Or is it the case that you have one guy that's doing all the heavy lifting and then you have a few supporting players?
Mike, before Steve or Josh even have a chance to comment on this, I will praise your braveness to ask that question, because I feel like to ask that question is to show our like naiveness and unknowing of and I'm right there with you. The reason why I don't ever like really ask this is because like by asking that question, I'm admitting like to the world, like, look, I only watch Riverhounds games. Like, I don't really watch a lot of the USL. so maybe Steve and Josh have a different point of view, but I'm right there with you.
This is not the USL show. This is Mongols. So I have 3 kids and lots of other stuff. I don't have time to watch other games.
Yeah.
So,
I pull up the league goal scorer top whatever this is, does it show maybe more than 25, because there's like a million people tied at 17 with 2 goals. But the reality is Chico's the only Riverhound on that list, but you see 2 former Riverhounds for Monterey Bay on that list. You see 2 players, including Russ Cicerone for Sac Republic. You see 3 players for Charleston. You see, right? You just see teams that are doing well. Some of those teams that are still undefeated, which means they're winning games. The teams at the top of the table, which we're not looking at. But also, like, you see good players. You see Brett and Tyler Pasher for Birmingham both on that list. Now, that's not a ton of goals, but you just see that those goals on the teams that are in good positions on the table, they have multiple players that are scoring more than 1 goal in 7 games.
And you also need to keep in mind, I think Dequa has 4 goals for the season. Mm-hmm. 3 of those came in 1 game.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
and if you put it in the context again of let's say before this game, we were one of the best defensive teams in the league, letting up 0.6 goals against a game. 1 goal a game makes a hell of a lot of difference when that's your defense. So yeah, it doesn't take much to push us over the top here.
Listen, I fully respect. There's this whole conversation going on with Aston Villa right now, where it's like, on average, they will give up maybe or no, they have not gone a game since they got a new coach without scoring at least one goal. So they know, okay, on average, we're going to get a goal. So if you want to beat us, you have to get 2. I fully respect if that was like Lily's approach of just like, okay, we're going to get a goal every game, and I trust our defense and our keeper to not give up 2. So we know we're going to get out of here with at least a point. Great. Like I'm all for that. The missing piece in that is, where is that one goal going to come from?
Yeah,
Like
reliable.
it needs to happen. So yeah. Oh,
I think, I mean, after the game at home last weekend, like, I get the sense even from Bob, he's not satisfied going back to the 1-0 win. I mean, his conversation talking about getting that second goal and that being a relief was a really different side that I think I've seen, or that I think people that talk about the Hounds or Bob Lilly's defense in the league expect, right? Like, he's like, no, I don't want to be the 1-0 eking out the wins, because he knows that that's not sustainable over the course of the season, is my take on it.
yeah, somebody's going to get a goal on you.
Mhm.
And then you got to figure out consistently, if you're scoring 2 goals a game, you're in a really good spot.
Yeah.
So how do we get to that point as a team, I think, is the big question. So, yeah. Guys, any other takeaways from this? We've talked a ton about a game that I think none of us really wanted to talk about. We did roll out sort of a 3-man back line. This was the first time that we had Hogan, Farrell, and Ordonez together.
That was interesting. Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting. I think that it's easy to say 3 center backs worked really well against RVG. So just do it again, but with Ordonez. Makes a lot of sense. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, it was the wrong decision, because I don't know if I would have made a different decision. Whether or not we see that moving forward, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I don't. Yeah, I'm left completely in the middle here of where we go from here. Whether or not we go back to 4, or if we stay with 3.
Well, I also wonder, I mean, if we had somebody faster, and it's not a knock on Pat's skill, but he just was never going to catch the winger from El Paso when that ball went over the top, right? Like, I mean, Luke was a little far away. He was a little far away. They were trying to close him down. A faster player. I mean, had that been Arturo on that side of Joe, maybe he would have been able to at least hassle him to keep him from having such an easy shot. I don't know, but I think that's part of it. Is the fast center back was isolated on one side as opposed to being the center. And how do you do that with 3 center backs? Do you put the fast guy in the middle, or do you put one of the fast guys on the side? It seems like that's not the back 3 I want to see if we're doing a back 3.
Well, and Steve, didn't you say last week that Lily specifically said he started Osumanu because, like, he's a little quicker, and you have Dos Santos sitting next to him too. I mean, so that I think that it makes sense. Yeah. But
It was nice to have Mertz back.
Yeah. So what? And I'm guessing we're just like saying Mertz is, in Lily's eyes, like, just Mertz is a better upgrade than Lopez, right? Like, that's kind of how we interpret this, because he kind of, like, to me, it looked like a like for like switch of, like.
I disagree with the like for like.
Okay.
I think that Robbie is a pure midfielder that can play defensively. He can play box to box, but he's going to be doing all the dirty work both ways in the midfield. Whereas I think it's a stretch for Tony to be that defensive presence. I think he plays much more as a support striker, a winger, or a pushing forward, attacking midfielder that doesn't have a lot of defensive responsibility.
And if you're going to play 3 at the back, you probably want Mertz.
Yeah. Good stuff, guys.
I'll say, I don't know, to put the period at the end of this. We were talking about, we don't know where goals are coming from. I don't know. So showing me when he generally comes on, especially early in the beginning of the season, he looked promising. Mike, I know you were throwing out some
Mhm.
like guesswork around what you think Show Me would do. He has yet to get a start.
Mhm.
So he's still getting, Kiz is still getting, starts over him. Lopez is still getting starts over them, both of which haven't scored goals yet. But he still looks decent when he comes on. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on Showing Me around like the I don't know. To me in my head, we're kind of through the beginning of the season now,
Mhm.
and we're properly in the middle. Well, not properly, but like, okay, we've had enough games to get the kinks worked out. I don't know. How do you guys see Showing Me like fit in with the squad?
I mean, the
'Cause
dad,
to me,
dad
he's-
joke is just sitting there, so I'm just gonna let it. I'm gonna let it go. But like,
he's to me the next obvious striker on the bench to try. And
yes.
Mike, I have no idea what the dad joke is.
Oh, I was gonna say, Showing Me needs to show me something. Like he literally.
That's why you're a dad and none
I
of us
know,
are.
right? Yeah. Sorry. I said the dad joke, and I saw the look on all your faces, like what? Yeah, no.
This is the highlight reel for like ESPN. When you eventually get a job for ESPN,
That's right.
Mike,
Yeah.
show 'em
Oh,
that clip.
geez. No, I thought earlier in the season he seemed. Well, I mean, even in this game, he picked up a ball, he got a shot
Mhm.
off. He's getting himself into dangerous positions. I wonder. We talk so much about how keepers and strikers, so much of their games are psychological, and I wonder how much of just he needs to get that monkey off his back and get a goal. And we'll talk about, we have this Open Cup game on Tuesday or today, depending on when you're listening to it. Is this the opportunity for him to get a start, put a goal away, and like get a confidence boost? And now all of a sudden, those chances that he's not putting away are going to start going away. I think that's what he needs. Positionally, where he's finding himself, the dirty work that he's doing, all point towards him being successful at some point. The only thing that's missing is the goals for me. And so I think if he can just keep on keeping on, eventually they will start happening. But how long do we need to keep on keeping on in order for that to happen? And that's what's not clear to me. He could, go on fire, and we could have him and Dequa for the second half of the season just tearing it up, and that would be amazing. But like, he needs to get to that point. And I know this is his first pro gig out of college, so like there's some learning and growing, and I think some of the stuff that he's done has been really, really good in that regard. It's just, yeah.
Any
So,
other
yeah.
thoughts?
I wouldn't
Who's
be sad to see him start over Kiza game and see what happens.
I almost
who was
wouldn't mind seeing.
the
Go ahead,
fourth,
Steve.
fifth striker last year? What was his name? Never did anything, but like,
Dane
Kelly?
no.
Same joke I was gonna make.
Oh, that was set you guys up. I could picture his face. Cannot think of his name. But Bob was really high on him. I think Bob was a little more high. Well, I should say Dan was a little more high on Tola this year. But feels like kind of a similar thing in the opportunities up to this point, not really showing off what he can do. And like that's the concern for me. I think you hit it really well, Mike. Like, at what point does he start finding the opportunity that he puts away? Because he's had some great chances. And does he just kind of like wither away and not become a good player for the Hounds because he doesn't actually get that goal? Or does he find a way to do it, and we see him eventually in a position where he's able to show something? Because I guess I look at Chico in that sense, right? Like, came in late his first season. That was the 16-game COVID season. Seemed to be behind Mensa, but he came in and he hit the ground running, and then he cooled off. Right, like neither of those guys were scoring goals at the end of the season. Yang, that's who I was thinking of.
Oh yeah,
Right, like is he going to just be another? Like, is Tola going to be another William Yang who has the tools, and Bob sees those tools, but he can't put it together as a Hound?
Yeah.
I think Showing Me needs a very specific formation and players around him to get the most out of him. Part of me thinks it's almost like a 4-4-2 with just him and Dequa saying, just sit on, both of you, sit on the shoulder of their last defender, and we'll play long balls in the channel. You guys are faster and stronger than the other defenders. we'll get, wide midfielders out there to whip in crosses for you and support you and everything. But yeah, I don't think we're going to see that. But
I was going to say, do you see Bob Lilly making
No.
that decision? Okay.
Hey man, listen, the Open Cup is at least at this stage.
That's
this could
true.
be time for experimentation.
Could
So,
do in the Open Cup. Good point.
yeah. So transitioning, guys, I mentioned already we have an Open Cup match tomorrow or today, depending on when you're listening to this, against the Maryland Bobcats. Last time we played in the Open Cup, we beat the Maryland Bobcats 2-0. This was in the second round. We are now in the third round because we got our bye against Rochester, whatever they're called, that
1-0
don't
win.
exist anymore. 1-0 win. Yeah, that's right. Maryland Bobcats, in terms of league play, their last game, they just beat Club de Leon 5-1 on Saturday, which was only their second game in the NISA season. And Club de Leon has lost all 3 of their games. So they're
Josh,
coming
you're
in.
not in your head you're like, oh, Club de Leon. I know them.
I actually was paying attention to this game because I wanted to know how they were doing. So
So they're coming in flying. Just a couple of notes, like we said, obviously it's the second time. We beat them last season to move on to the third round. This is now the third round. Bob Lilly has never lost in an Open Cup match against a lower division opponent. So he obviously like to keep that streak alive. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other things that we could sort of read off here in terms of what could happen next. The biggest thing is that if the Hounds do win this game, they're predicting that the next round will be drawn on Thursday of this week. So we'll know who we play. It's not a given that it's going to be like a DC United. We know that there's going to be other MLS teams entering the competition in this next round, including Philadelphia Union, both the New York teams. So it could end up with any of those teams in any of the places. Assuming we win this game. My question for you guys, all things considered, is this a must win, Josh?
I wouldn't say it's a must win. It is an embarrassing loss if we don't. It isn't the only reason I would say must win, obviously because I want to get farther in the Open Cup, but also because of the game they just had, the Hounds just had, and trying to right the ship and build up confidence. Losing against a NISA team is not going to build the team's confidence. It's not going to help the morale in the locker room. So in that aspect, a win here would be very, very nice. And it's also, obviously it's a competition, it's a tournament, so it's a must win in that aspect of it. But yeah, I would say it's more of an embarrassing loss than anything if we don't win.
Steve, you agree?
Yes, and for Bob, I think it is a expected win. Bob Lilly has never lost to a lower division team in the U.S. Open Cup. I don't think he's going to be happy if we're in a position where that looks like that can happen this game. That being said, my knowledge of it is that towards the end of last week, Bob hadn't even thought about Tuesday. He was so focused on El Paso. He's like, oh, no, we'll win Tuesday, right? Like, yeah, we'll be there. Oh, yeah, we've got to practice at Highmark. Sure, we'll practice at Highmark. Like, we'll let the guys know we'll be there. We'll win that game and move on. Like, his expectation is that no matter who he puts in this game, this is a winnable game for them. And I agree with that mindset. Like, yeah, I don't care what players have or haven't played for the Hounds this season, who is in the starting lineup. I mean, pick Gomes to be the keeper who hasn't seen any time as the third keeper, and he better not lend up more goals than the opposition keeper, right? Like that's what this game is. It's a must win because it's a lower division team. You're playing at home. You've got all the options. Now, that being said, I expect to see a lot of the key starting players not starting. Kenny Forbes, he's not going to be in the starting 11. He'll be in the 18. Because when things get tight and you want that presence in the midfield towards the end of the game, Kenny will come into this game if we're not winning by 2-3 goals at that point. That's my take.
Kev, are you at all concerned about this game?
I'm concerned because it's soccer and anything can happen in soccer, but No, I really like how Josh phrased it. Not necessarily a must win, but an embarrassing loss. I think the other thing is I don't know. I mean, look, I'm still, even in the reaction to the El Paso game, I'm still positive on this team's trajectory over the course of the season. Maybe even more so than I was last season. For in ways that I can't really put to words yet. I'm hoping to being able to formulate that as we continue to podcast over the season. But even with that, winning a league is extremely hard. And so, okay, what can you do to make memories in the meantime?
Be Sacramento from last year.
Exactly. So I think, MLS teams look at the cup competition. I could be wrong, but I imagine some of the MLS Cup teams look at this cup competition and be like, I can't really be bothered with this. This, like, good USL sides, this is what we should be pushing for. And so, yeah, I care about the cup, and I want to see. We haven't seen any big teams come to Highmark since we've been podcasting, I don't think.
No.
And I'd like to see that change. So, yeah, I do care.
No, when I was talking to Matt about this, I had not realized that DC versus the Hounds in 2015, which I'll say that's why I'm a Hounds fan, because I came to see DC and became a Hounds fan because the Steel Army was small at that point compared to what it is now, but awesome. And I was like, I'm coming back. That's the first and only time an MLS team has played at Highmark.
Yeah, and I mean, we increased those odds by being in the competition longer, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. We were not podcasting at that point? Were we podcasting when we played Wigan? Do you remember when Wigan came?
I think Wigan was before DC. I want to say it was.
Oh. I just remember somebody had a giant Sally Wigan head cut out, and I was like, that's genius. Nobody from Wigan got that joke, but that was fantastic. Yeah.
I remember it must have been, if we didn't start in 2015, it must have been 2016 or early 2017, because the YouTube algorithm threw up an old live stream Mongols something.
Oh yeah, it's always showing up for me now. Yeah.
And the backdrop was the first apartment I lived in when we moved down to Knoxville, and we were only there for 2 years when we moved down here in 2015. And I had a gnarly beard, and my hair was all over and I was just like, oh god. So yeah, it was around that time.
It's been 2 years since we did the jerseys, and that was for the fifth season of the podcast, right? So we're in the seventh season now?
I think we're in the seventh season. Yeah.
So I looked it up because this Wigan news was new to me. July 19th, 2013.
Wow.
ABC 4 News article.
I thought it was one of the first seasons at Highmark. It was the first season at Highmark.
And
yeah,
I love everything about it because it's like the zoomed in, ultra cropped, Hounds dog head logo.
Hey, Casey
with
just
Wigan Athletic.
it.
It's 16 minutes into the game and it's 1-1. That's great.
Our buddy Casey McIntyre. 2013 was Wigan. 2015 was DC. Thanks, Casey. Yeah, let's do some score prediction, guys. And this will count towards our totals. So you got to.
I was throwing this out.
I don't have to remember to search it out on YouTube.
Tough.
I get all the video stuff, but not the other posts as alerts, and I don't know how to change it.
You need to make sure you like and subscribe, man. That's all you got to do. If you go to if it's YouTube /Mongols, there's a community tab and all of our posts and stuff are there, or they should just show up that way.
Yeah. Once I figure out how to get the alerts, I'll let everybody know because I'm sure I'm not the only one that hasn't figured out to get all the alerts.
Cool. Steve, what's your score prediction in this one?
2-0 Hounds.
Josh?
I want to say 3-0, but it's probably 2-0. It's probably 2-0.
You think it's 2-0? Kev?
3-1 Hounds.
Oh, that was my pick too. So I'm going 3-1. I'm not stealing it because I should have just said it before you. All right, so that's what we think. Make sure you let us know what you think. head over to you can find us on Twitter. The link is there. It was there this morning. It'll still be there tomorrow. Actually, I'll make sure that I pin it for us. But then the real picks are over on YouTube, just like always. And like I said, this counts towards the predictions that we're doing all year long. Whoever gets the most points gets two free season tickets to the Hounds in 2024 to sit with the Steel Army. So it's totally worth it to play. Head over, participate. It's a lot of fun. I think if you want the tickets, you have to be a supporter, which is $10 for the year, which is like insane. So go check that out. Guys, after this game, we head to Indy on Saturday. Our first shot at Indy, 7 p.m. Indy only have one win so far in the season, which is not saying a ton. I think we only have two. Their last 4 games, trying to get a sense of like what to expect from Indy. Their last 4 games have all been against Western Conference teams. So it's like hard to get a comparison. 3 of those Western Conference teams, though, have been in Indy. Like they've played those games in Indy. And of those, they have 1 draw and 3 losses. So Indy's not doing so hot at home. They're basically a -3. They've scored 3 goals, but given up 6. They are going to play Columbus Crew on Wednesday in Columbus for the Open Cup. So we'll basically have 1 more day's rest and not play an MLS team. So that sort of plays in our factor. They've also played 1 less game than us, but they've completed 700 more passes than us this season. So they like to move the ball. They've also won 16 more fouls than us. So whether that means they're putting themselves in compromising positions or they're flopping, it's Indy. I would guess there's a lot of flopping going on. Only former Hound that I saw on the roster is Robbie Dambrot. He's had some games with them this season. I think he joined the mid-season last year. There was a whole thing about like, where'd he go? And then he popped up on Indy's roster. So all that in mind.
Wait, so they've committed more fouls or gotten more fouls committed against them?
Had 16 more committed against them.
Okay, got you. I was going to say,
again,
if they had more fouls than us, I was like, that's impressive because we got a lot of fouls. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
It's probably what you said that they're completing a lot more passes. To me, that means they're holding on to the ball longer, which means they're potentially drawing more fouls. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And their passes are probably not as progressive.
Right.
Yeah.
Considering that, they're at a -3 for the past 4 games. So they're not scoring that much. Guys.
If it's going to be an away game, this is a good away game. I mean, obviously you want home and you feel more confident at home, but if you got to play away, this is the team to play away against. It sounds like right now. So
see, that's what my instinct tells me. But now I'm trying to think like Kevin, like, well, probabilistically, and
I'm in your head, Mike.
Talk us
I'm in
through
your
this,
head.
Kev. Talk us through this game so that we get a sense of where you're headed here. Make
Mike,
your case.
There's no science to this. No.
So the first 15 minutes of the show was total BS. I was gonna say the first 15 minutes of every show are totally BS. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I mean, yes, I agree with Josh with like out of all the away games, this is one that seems reasonable. I don't know. I guess just like cognitively too, like Pittsburgh to El Paso might as well be like Pittsburgh to French Polynesia. Like in my head, it's just like forever away. And like anytime we play an East Coast team, I'm like, oh, that's fine. Like you can drive, like it's cool. And so okay, it's Indy. We know Indy. We played Indy. Like so, I'm going through all this. No, I think it's either a draw or a win, and I'll say geez, I really can't figure this out. 2-1 Hounds.
Okay. Steve, what do you think?
I think this ends up being a 1-0 Hounds win because I think that a league game after giving up those goals, team's going to get back. They're going to practice on Wednesday. They're not going to get the day of rest. Or so, I don't know. I could see Bob being like, no, forget the day of rest. We're working hard for this game on the weekend. And he's not going to be satisfied with giving up cheap goals or goals that are preventable. And I don't know that we have, as we talked about, the attacking power to blow a team out. This is a team we could blow out because this is a team that is not good. All of their points have come against teams that are lower than them on the tables. I mean, you're
Which
talking
isn't
about
which is saying much. Yeah.
right. Like you're not like this is not a team that has done anything against anybody good. I mean, they got a win against was it Detroit, a tie against Tampa Bay, and a tie against Las Vegas. Like these are teams that are not winning games, not scoring goals. So and all of those teams are giving up goals, right? You look at all those teams, it's all negative goal differentials for them. So this is a team we should be able to beat. Yeah, 1-0 win Hounds.
Josh, what do you think?
I'm also saying 2-0. I think them playing Columbus in the fact that they're going to really be reaching for that game. They're going to be trying, like, if it's the Open Cup, we were just talking about how much it means to our USL team. Yeah, they're going to be reaching for that game. So they're going to put it their all and they're going to be tired. So, yeah.
I mean, that does play a huge factor in this, right? We were just talking about how we don't think Bob is going to start our starters against the Bobcats. Indy very well may be starting their starters against Columbus and giving it their all. And so there's a whole rest consideration there as well. I know it's at home, but their record at home is not good. So yeah, I think I'm gonna take a win as well. Now I'm torn because I was thinking 2-1, but do I go 2-1 because that's what Kevin picked?
I
Or
love this. This is great.
but this is like part of the game, right? But see, then Kev, your voice is in the back of my head going, where do these goals come from? Like who's scoring these goals? So like that makes me think Steve with his 1-0 win. I'm kind of like, oh, that sounds pretty good.
Just think
Join me, Mike. Join me.
just put this in your mind. Like, okay, so we've had like 4 or 5 away games so far this season. 1 draw, 1 win, or no, 2 draws, 1 win, and 2 losses. Yeah, that looks right. Do you think this team is a 3 loss, 2 draw, 1 win like road team?
No, I don't think we lose. I'm not worried about lose. I'm figuring score prediction here at this point. So I think we win. It's just like by how much. So do I think we just had the conversation of like, if you feel confident you're going to score 1 goal a game, but I'm not confident we're going to score 1 goal a game playing the way we play. It also feels like it comes in waves, right? Like the game against crap, who do we play?
Yeah,
home?
ask Tottenham that question.
RGV. Yeah, seriously. RGV. What, it felt like we could have been scoring at will in the second half of that game. We just poured it on. So what offensive team shows up in Indy? I kind of like the argument that Bob's going to be upset about the loss this weekend, and so he's going to say, let's like throw the kitchen sink at them, and this is an Eastern Conference team. We're going to have to play them twice. So I'm going to take, part of me wants to say there's 3 goals in this game, but I do not.
Go for it. Why not?
Let's do it.
Little.
3-0 Hounds. I do not feel confident with that pick at all. But also, if it happens, then like I know that I'm getting 3 points when the rest of you get 1. So like there's my chance to make a difference. I need to look at the schedule and actually figure out like what are those differentiator games where like you swing for the fences, because like
I will say one thing I'm worried about with this game, and it's not because of this game, it's because of the Open Cup game that we're going to be playing. There is something to be said about when you're playing a lower league team, a team with less skill, they tend to get scrappy because that team will come in hard on challenges. They're having something to prove. They're the ones that are going to, really screw up a player on accident because they're not as skilled. So I'm always worried with these Open Cup games against lower league teams that someone's going to come out injured. And that's one thing I don't think you're going to have as much of a worry as Indy being against the Crew. So like if our game gets scrappy, that's going to be a bad sign for the Indy game.
Yeah. Good thing is though,
unless Columbus pulls in some young players that really want to impress and do some damage.
Yeah. Good thing is it's on Highmark's field. So at least we're not playing like some hacked up grass with, dirt potholes everywhere and everything, and someone's going to twist an ankle. I'm kidding, obviously, and grossly over exaggerating, but
Yeah. I just keep on thinking of like when the Columbus Crew played Dayton Dutch Lions. I remember Eddie Gavin. I think was his name Eddie Gavin. I think his name
That's a
was Eddie.
callback. Yeah.
Yeah,
what a
he got
memory.
his career-ending injury was
Yeah,
from an
wow.
Open Cup game because of that game.
Is that what
And,
happened to him?
Yeah, he got
Huh.
really screwed up at an Open Cup game against Dayton,
Hmm.
and he never played again.
So, speaking of injuries, right? Like, so we know Junior's out, but I also noticed that Danny Rivera was not in the 18. And so I think that's just something to monitor. See,
didn't
what
he
his
go
status
like
is.
missing last year too?
Yeah, and my guess is I've had this feeling that Bob is really hesitant to put people on an injured list, and I have a little more of a feeling of that than I think. Like it's just a feeling, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I don't know about Danny, but I just noticed he wasn't there. I got to practice pretty late. I mean, there were only a few guys left doing free kicks when I got there, so I have no ability to know if he was
trying to
practicing or
take your
not
head
on
off.
Tuesday. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Thursday. So I don't know if he was in practice or not, but he wasn't there in the 18 on Saturday. It'll be interesting to see if he's in the 18 tomorrow or this coming Saturday. And that's a big absence, I think, if he's not fit for whatever reason.
That's one thing that I was thinking about comparing this league to other leagues. It feels like, at least with the Hounds, there's a lot of secrecy that it just feels like, in the preseason where we're like, why are we not getting the names of these trialists? And I understand the justification,
Mhm.
but like even things like injury reports, like letting people know about what to expect going into game. There's just a lot of, whether it's like lack of, precedent where just not a lot of teams do it, so nobody does it, or if it's like we're intentionally trying to be secret because we think it's going to give us some sort of advantage for the team not to know whether or not Daniel Rivera is on the injured list or not. Like, what are we doing here? Like, let's know our lane and
I wonder if a lot of that is the coach GM dual role with the Hounds and Bob Lilly, right? Like, I think that you see that pretty clearly with teams that have a clear director of soccer or general manager or VP, whatever that role is, and then have a coach, right? Like they're focused on communicating the state of the team, not coaching the team. I think for Bob, he doesn't want to give that information away to anyone. If Danny is out for 2 months, I don't think that's like, I'm not supposing that's what it is, right? But like, he doesn't want anybody to know that like they might not be playing against Danny Rivera for the next however long, right? Like he wants every opposing coach to have to be prepared for the flexibility of Nate, Danny, Luke as those wing backs, and how do you prepare for the three different play styles of those in those two positions.
Maybe Bob just doesn't like doing paperwork.
Who does? I'm so on board with this.
I don't even think it's that Bob doesn't like to do paperwork, because I think it's he doesn't even think about doing paperwork.
That's what I'm saying. Like we never know like what the lineup looks like as far as like positions. Like every time they put up a graphic for what the Hounds are playing, it's like, oh, we think they're playing in these positions.
I love those graphics.
Yeah.
Those graphics are amazing because I'm just like, what formation are they going to put us in this week? Like, this is fun.
Those are great.
I
I also get the feeling that like if you catch Bob, I don't know, in the parking lot of like a Giant Eagle, he's going to be like, oh yeah, like Atu's out for this long, or Rivera's out for this long. Like I don't know. So yeah.
And I think that's true, right? Like I can get quite a bit of info from Matt Grubba when I'm talking to him, but there are things Matt would never say to me that if I catch Bob at the right moment, I'm going to know it all.
Yeah. Like a podcast where we just let him talk for an hour.
Oh, yeah. Part of me misses having him on the show, but it's like you ask him one question and you're done. That's it. Like, just
There's pros and cons to it. It's great to get a direct line from the manager, but
I've really begun to enjoy home game media post games with Bob, because it's just like you get such an insight into his thought process and how he conceptualized the games. I've learned a lot just listening to him in terms of like, oh, this is why that happened in the game, or this is what you were doing, and now I understand why you do that, and I understand the game a lot more.
I don't know if you guys saw the latest episode of Ted Lasso, but there's a scene where he's like putting together formations using ketchup and mustard bottles, and somebody made a reference, I forget who it was, on Twitter, that they were like, literally they ran into Bob somewhere and he was doing the exact same thing, like explaining strategy to them with ketchup and mustard bottles and like formations and stuff.
It was Jeff, president.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
There, yeah. So
He's actually told me that story in person before, about how, like, he was just asked him a question about soccer, and Bob's like, okay, here's what it is, blah 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 blah, and doing the whole thing. He's like, oh, okay, cool.
yeah.
Thanks,
Steve,
Mike.
your dog's getting a shout out, from the comments section.
He squeezed up, like usually he tries to jump up from the side. No, this time he squeezed up from underneath the desk and made himself known. So this is Rory, everybody. Say hi, bud.
Now he's camera shy.
Yeah.
Well, that is what we think. Obviously, let us know what you think. I guess, Josh, well, obviously the game tomorrow or today, depending on when you're listening to the Open Cup game, is at Highmark. I'm assuming tickets are still available if you have the opportunity to get down there, because Open Cup is always crazy. For the Indy game this weekend, Bulldog?
Yeah, I mean, we'll be a Bulldog. We don't have like an official watch party or anything like that, but it's always going to be on at Bulldog. And then the Open Cup game, no real tailgate planned because it is a weekday game. And I think they announced tickets were like $15 at the gate.
Yep,
it's not going to sell out. It's general admission for the whole thing, so sit wherever you want. We'll probably still be over in the Steel Army section because it'd be weird not to be for a real game. So yeah.
And remember, everybody, go make sure you get your score predictions in over on YouTube. JF submitted a few while we were chatting. We appreciate that. He said, 2-0 Hounds tomorrow in the Open Cup, and he thinks there's going to be a 1-1 draw in Indy. So make sure you get those in.
Have you just given up putting up the chart, Mike? You can't take the pain of,
okay, I literally had it queued up. Here, you want to see the chart? Kevin's the only one that got points this week. So Kevin's sitting at the top with 9. And then we have a 3-way tie for second between Keaton, Dan Yost, and Laura Allen with 5 points each. JF has 4 points, Tim Regis Jr. 4 points, and then the rest of us are either 3, 2, 1, or none.
I'm only enjoying this because it won't last forever. Like I'm gonna be down eventually. So
yeah. Doing the statistical analysis on all of our predictions, like everyone across the board at the end of the season, is going to be fun because we all know nothing as it comes to, and I think that's normal. There's so many shows that I'll listen to where they do score predictions, but they never go back and look at them again. So like, there's no,
accountability.
Accountability. That's the word I was looking for. Yes. Thank you. So head over to Twitter, head over to YouTube, get your picks in, have some fun. And, otherwise, let's hope for 2 wins this week. And thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you very, very soon.